What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. Oh my goodness, today on the program I have Harsev, Jr. Thiara, the HempGuru LLC. Oh, you've heard a little bit about that. Well, he's one of the people that Katrina Texador from Kaz Marketing Agency has sent over to have a chat. I'm kind of excited for you to hear what we're going to talk about. Yeah, you're going to hear a little bit more about Harsev, Jr. Thiara. So stick around. This week's shows, I have one public show. Well, really, I have two public shows, but the one that I'm always at on Friday nights, you'll probably find me there almost every Friday night of the year. That's the Rab in Conway, Arkansas, the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. Yes, I said karaoke. We got a little concert starring each and every one of you. Come sing a song for the people. You provide the entertainment. I'm just pressing buttons. You pick the song. You sing the song. You're the star of the show at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the AM. They got a full bar, kitchen's open, pool tables. They got a pool tournament on Friday night. So if you want to try your hand at playing pool, I encourage you to check out the Rab, Conway, Arkansas. I'll wait. We got time. 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the AM. Come on out. It's a good time. Now, I did say I have two public shows. I'll be in Marshall, Arkansas from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. on Saturday. There's a grand opening at the Family Dollar, and I'm going to play some music at the Marshall Family Dollar. It's a grand opening. You guys are getting a Family Dollar in Marshall, Arkansas. I'm stoked. I'm so stoked. All right. That's enough intro. Let's get into it with Harsev, Jr. Thiara, the hemp guru himself. I got him on Skype. So if you're listening to the audio version, check out the video version. YouTube.com/user/KeysDan. Skyping Harsev, Jr. Thiara now. Ah, there we are. Man, you're a pro.
I got to figure out this technology. I haven't done Skype forever.
No,
but I got her.
You got the headphones. You got the microphone.
I took instructions, man. Took instructions.
That's
the greatest thing I've ever done. I didn't realize it makes such a difference when you do these Zooms and so forth.
It does. It does. Should I call you Harsev, Jr. Thiara?
I think JR is fine. That's it just depends, right? In a formal sense, spiritually, the people call me Harsev, right? But from a business perspective, JR is easy to remember. And it's just my trade name. I always say, hi, this is JR most of the time, unless you know me, right? If you know me, Harsev is great, right?
Well, I want to know you. I want to know a whole lot more about you. Harsev. I'm gonna go with Harsev. Now pronounce your last name for the people.
Thiara.
Oh.
Thiara, actually, officially.
All right, like a crown. Okay. Now I noticed you're not a hemp novice. You're not a hemp, even advanced hemp person. You're an actual hemp guru. Now, what makes you a hemp guru as opposed to anything else?
Well, yeah, my family's originally from Punjab, India, and I'm a Punjabi of the Sikh faith, and the term guru is actually a big word in our religious perspective, and so that's the best word I could come up with. Guru means teacher. And so my whole life has been about teaching people about many different walks of life, but especially in the last few decades about health, spiritual living, healing, being happy, being good, truth finders, basically, right? And Sikhism literally means seekers of truth. That's the definition of Sikh.
See, this is primarily a learning podcast. The reason I did this, What Makes You Famous podcast, I wanted to talk to people, have conversation with people, and learn from people. So you are actually being my guru, my teacher, my person that's going to teach me about quite a few things. Now, I've been, and yeah, my name is Dan, Keys Dan. You can call me Dan. My mama calls me Dan.
Pleasure to meet you, Dan, face to face, finally.
So happy to be here on the What Makes You Famous podcast. So happy to have you here. Absolutely. Now, you're hailing all the way from California. What part of California are you in?
We're northern California, just north of the capital city, Sacramento. So we're in this beautiful valley surrounded by rivers. We're down just an hour and a half from our beautiful Lake Tahoe mountain resort. We have the ocean a couple miles away. We have volcanoes a couple of hours away, massive rivers. So it's really a beautiful, we're not overcrowded yet. So it's really a beautiful, and the weather, we get all 4 seasons. It's beautiful. It's fun.
What a geographical anomaly. You got the ocean over there. You got the mountains over there. You got the forest over there. You got so much to see, so much to do. You're probably not too far away from a vineyard or two.
Yeah, we're just a couple of hours from Napa, the actual famous, wine country. And then we have Sonoma, which is maybe a 3-hour drig. And there's some wineries popping up here in the foothills now. This used to be this was originally, the valley floor was grape country, fresh grapes. And then back in the 50s or so, there was some root type of disease that came and just devastated the crops. And this is where the Thompson seedless grape, the first seedless grape, was started. And then all of a sudden Napa became the big cheese Kahona. And then the fresh fruit market is about a 4-hour drive from us in Central California. So we're fruits and nuts up here: walnuts, almonds, peaches, anything that's, say, processed in the sense of like canned or dried. And we have prunes, the famous prune. And we're also the kiwi capital. We were the original kiwi capital of the United States.
Well,
and my family's been farming here. Actually, my family came from Punjab, a farming community exactly almost ditto of this environment. Northern India is this exact ditto valley of rivers and land and fertile. And so landing here back in 1906, my grandfather's older brother ended up making his way from the port of Seattle by stagecoach and dropped off to the neighboring town. And lo and behold, he was right here near the gold rush. But actually, the people were trying to farm from the East Coast, trying to figure it out. And we just became a natural fit, slowly but surely. And that's how my family evolved as farming. I was a farmer. My background is farming.
That is fantastic. Now, you say he got there to San Diego
he's Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, he came from the north to the south. Now,
right,
in India, in Punjab, was it Punjabi? Was that the name of the town?
Yes, he came from Punjab. The last place I could imagine anybody even hearing about the gold rush, because it's pretty in the deep woods. In those days, it was very village life. I mean, little house on the prairie, times 2.
He's over there farming in Punjab, and he was looking for I guess, opportunity, just like anybody else, trying to find a better way. What would make him leave his home of India? It's hard to sometimes it's hard to imagine that you want to take roots up and travel to another part of the world and try to build a life. What made him leave India?
Yeah, I grew up with him. I had the opportunity to grow up with him for about 14 years of my life, and it was a beautiful thing. I'm so fortunate. I had my father, my grandfather, and the older brother, all as my mentors. And he was a great man. He was a very good man. He made it from the straps of his bootlegs and became very successful here. And as a result, my sisters and I are the first generation born in the U.S. And so, but yeah, I don't know. India was a British colony back then, and they must have heard about the gold rush or something somehow, in that way deep woods, so to speak, and decided to make it here. He was one of the first few migrants from India to cross the border here, and they happened to land in this. It's really funny. The the Himalayan mountains border Punjab. In other words, when you go up the mountains, it's the Himalayas. It's where the home of the Dalai Lama is, just a 7-8 hour drive away above the ground where we farm, and we end up in the largest mountain range in the world. Right, that's where we come from. Right, the Himalayas, Mount Everest, and somehow we end up to this. We're known for the county is called Sutter County, and we have a mountain range called the Sutter Buttes, and they're the smallest mountain range in the world. So we went from the biggest to the smallest, and it was just quite a weird anomalies of story here, right? To tell it just.
Yeah, you just came to a miniaturized version of where you're from. Now, when he was in, he was in Punjab. What was he farming for, and did he take some of that that farming
back then
to
mostly
America?
row crops, sugar cane, bits of cotton, grains, mainly grains, rice. And because we didn't have orchards, there were some mangoes, but people didn't really grow them in groves back then. They were grown mostly in the mountains and so forth. And primarily in India, it's mostly staple crops. But they do have vegetables, and they're big veggie eaters. So there's other vegetable crops like cauliflower, broccoli, those kinds of things that are grown. Potatoes, peanuts.
Okay. Did he bring?
Although it's ideal for prime farming, anything you want.
Well, did he bring that to Seattle and then ultimately to where you are right now?
Yeah, he actually when he walked off the USS Tartar was the name of the ship. When he walked off of that plank, got on the stagecoach. The immigrants from India were called Asians for some reason at that time, and were only allowed to have $8 in their pocket back in 1906. That was the maximum amount of money. Now I don't know I have never done the math. It might be 80,000 today, or or something of that nature. And so some reason, I guess he must have been able to communicate. I want to go to this gold place or this Sutter or whatever, however they knew about it. And so somebody at the port there said, okay, it's going to be so many dollars or 50 cents for for the ride for 6-8 hours or a day or two, and the ticket ran out in the little town next door to where my family's actually hails from here now. Have been here since that time, because we've been here since 1906 in the same little town. And so when he got off and it was enough money for food in your pocket, and when he first got here, didn't know anybody, and Indians weren't. The community, our history in this country, right? There's a little bit of ill-fated history that went on back in those days. And so they didn't know what to do with the brown guys from India. They really didn't know how to treat us. Although when they first came, they weren't allowed to sleep even in the barns with their horses. They had to find shelter outside. The English was a big issue that time, between my uncle. He was illiterate in English. And but what happened was, he was here in 1906. He gained a reputation because all these farmers from the Irish and the Brits and the French who didn't know anything about farming, coming from the East Coast, sure. Right? They're all like coat and tie folks, and they were struggling, right? And so all of a sudden, and he comes and goes, hey, I can do this. And he shows them how to irrigate the land and how to get water to go uphill and then downhill, all these different techniques, and how to plant. And because it was in our blood already for a few generations. And so he got respected and befriended a couple of farmers who were good people, very nice and genuine human beings. And then he opened up. We actually had a Bank of America in my little town. This is really, even though the gold rush was here, so we had our cowboy, shooting them up, the brothels part of town, in a neighboring town, just like, Dodge City, right? It was all the whole 9 yards was there. And so, but eventually he got respect, and eventually, made his way indoors. And then a few more Punjabis single men, made it across the borders. And then he got a couple of people together. And I think he might've been the first labor contractor in all reality. He got a few people together. They were able to house, in a place, food. And then they started working for the different farmers in groups, and he became like the guy, right? Like, hey, come here, help me, come here. It's time to harvest. It's time to do this. It's time to plant. And then we were entering the Black Friday days of the Great Depression. And during all these years, 17, 18, 19 years, he was able to they were earning like a nickel a day. Mm-hmm. And he was able to, I don't know how he did it, but he saved money in the bank, opened a Bank of America bank account, couldn't even sign his name. And saved enough money to have here, sent money back to India. My family bought a little more land at just a little bit, a nickel a day. And here comes the Great Depression, and every American citizen went flat broke. The farmers were in dire straits, and he had money and gave it to the farmer that he was working with and saved his tail. And that took us to a whole new level. Right, that took us to oh my gosh, we had a lot of different. We had the color thing going on, Christianity thing going on, just all these different factors influencing the way people thought how you should be. But they were strong enough and strong-willed enough. They adapted, but didn't give up their culture and their heritage. And so, and that's how. And then after that, and you couldn't buy. And then the other thing you couldn't do is you couldn't buy land as an Indian if you weren't an American citizen. And they had what they call the Asian land law that they started in the early 20s. And so finally, there was a few Indian gentlemen who, once they came, they never really went back. And some people came over single, some people were married, but few people married. A lot of Mexican Americans were here, right? Because we had the Spanish California War. So they were Mexican American citizens. So, and their culture's kind of similar, cooking, spices, sauces. And so one of these guys, one of our family friends, married a woman of Mexicana descent. And so my granduncle was able to somehow buy land. And I can say it now, but back then it was a big secret. It was like underhanded government go to jail stuff. And in the name of this Mexicana woman, and for like 10, 15 years, farmed it, earned the money. And once in the mid 40s, abolished that law, that Asian land law. And it was I think that's one of the most beautiful examples of integrity, because it was just a handshake deal. And with a handshake, he got his property back. It could have turned about the opposite. It could have been just bad news. Right. And so that's where began the legacy. And then my father came over in the 50s, and and then we had myself. I'm an only son. My father was an only son, and in Indian heritage, that's a very important thing. I have 6 sisters I was born to, so they kept trying, but they didn't have any luck.
Okay, well, Harsev, I appreciate so much that you have to. The knowledge that your grandfather and your father imparted to you. I love the story of your life, of your ancestry. You got roots like an oak tree. I think I have roots like a radish. I barely knew my grandfather on my dad's side. I barely knew my dad, for that matter. My mother's side a little bit better. They're from Cuba and such. The Caribbean. Wow. The Caribbean part. But the history that you have, where you came from farmer after farmer after farmer, but they came traveling, looking for opportunity, and they found that opportunity and fought for that opportunity. Because around the turn of the last century, in the early 1900s, and it was pretty problematic. I think there was more separation, to be sure. We don't hire Irish. Oh, we don't hire those Italians. We don't hire. It was so divided. By where you're from. And then it became slowly. I don't remember when Mexicans were started to be classified as white, because the white people couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out. Oh, I don't know what to call them. Man, let's call them. Would they be white? But they don't. Anybody other than Caucasian became. Had to fight, had to struggle twice as hard to get half as much, and a nickel a day. Yeah. It doesn't seem like much, and it probably wasn't a lot. I couldn't imagine that it's I know you were making a joke earlier where $8 in your pocket's like 80,000. It's hard to quantify what it would equal with inflation, but your grandfather and father sound like pretty impressive fellas. That's amazing. It was actually it's very fortunate, what they did. They were leaders. They were nomads. They did it. They absolutely took advantage of the opportunity here and went through the struggles. Well, you're saying in your culture, having a male heir does help. Cultural wise, the females. Is there a different treatment I know even growing up as I guess I guess I'm mostly Caucasian. The girls, there is a double standard. Boys can go out and paint the town red, but girls,
Right.
you got to keep them home because
Right.
you got to keep a tight rein on them. How's the culture in India?
Well, yeah, Punjabi culture. Well, the interesting thing, Dan, is when my parents migrated, like when my granduncle came, he actually assimilated really much more aggressively than when my father's generation came. And when my father's, because they had family, right, wives, and some starting to have kids, and there were more people, there were more families, and we kind of got frozen in time. We actually left India from like the 60s, and that whatever with the thought process of how women were treated. And I mean, women in our culture, in our very first, for lack of better words, the holy book, women are to be revered and respected. That's one big difference in Sikhism. Equality is big. And but girls could not go paint the town. There's no, that part of, whether it's America or in the old 50s or India, that part of the world just seems to stick, right? It's just, you got to stay home, and you can't go out. And of course, they didn't do a lot of dating in those days in the culture. It wasn't because that's the biggest thing in India. Traditionally, there was no dating. I mean, officially, and everything was arranged marriages and through family connections and making sure there's no bloodline conflicts and all this. And then, how you match up with somebody. Parents were involved, and it was a pretty big family affair. And so my sisters, although my father was pretty modern in his own, he loved America. He loved all the cool stuff that you could live with. And my sisters had a much more liberal life than I had another 5 first cousin sisters in the same town. So they had 11 sisters and 1 boy, basically. I was split between 2 families, 2 sisters married to 2 first cousins, right? So, but they were treated differently, more strict, definitely by far than my sisters were. Although my sisters had they had a general morality anyway, but they had more freedom. There was a trust factor. And then I went to school in my little town into kindergarten, but after that, my father, we also got involved in the old days with all the politicians. That was one thing Indians were very smart about. They pooled their money, and in those days, the sheriff, how to take care of the sheriff when there was an issue. You got your congressmen, senators, assemblymen. The governor of California used to come here to put through. All these people would come through my family's house. And so my father said, I want my son to have be the best American he could possibly be. And he's talking to these guys, and they go, well, there's this military academy in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. And I don't know. There's no brown people, black people there, right? But next thing I know, I'm applied to go there, and I'm 6 years old, and I wasn't forced. I went there myself, and I actually made a conscientious decision. I go, yeah, I'm going to go here, and so at 6 years old, boof, they take me. I'm dropped off. I'm wearing military school clothes, tying a tie. So, the whole making my own bed, learning all this discipline. It was more of a finishing school. I call it 007 school kind of thing, because they taught us all the things you need to know. Plus how to live and be a proper gentleman, right? And be able to tour the world, right? You basically be the man of the world, right? A total ambassador. And so
at 6 years old, you're already finishing. What?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I was a military boy for 9 years at that joint, and then I went away. I went to another Jesuit high school after that.
Did you go up through Did you go up to the ranks? Was there a ranking system?
Yeah. It was the craziest thing. It was generally, private first class, corporal, sergeant, the same standard military. And my first 6 months into it, I got my first little stripe, which is a private first class, and the school went up to 9th grade, 15-year-olds, and authority was based on age, but rank was superior. So next thing I know, I'm 6.5 years old, and I'm telling 15-year-old boys what to do.
Oh my! Okay, all right.
Not in a mean way, right? But I'm explaining, and then I went through the ranks, and I guess I had leadership built in my. I learned leadership. I learned it from a child. The personalities I was surrounded with. My father was a giver. He was a leader. I just had great role models. And so I made it through the ranks. Really, when I finished there, I was the top rank. president of the school, all that good stuff.
Well, was there a push? Was there a push to go into the military from that school,
it was like the question there was ROTC, because it only went to freshman year in high school, right?
Yeah.
And then if you really wanted to go further, there was in those days there was probably a high school, military high school, but the other schools were more the reputation of that kind of what you think about military school, disciplinary, like my kid's a rat, they're going to send you to military school. But my experience was it was like the best vacation opportunity I could have ever had. They took us everywhere. We did. I mean, if you earned it, you got to do everything that nobody's ever probably done. As far as a child, all the amusement parks, as long as you earned it. I mean, they did, and they taught us things and how to just be good. I mean, they just, and so had I grown up in my little town, I probably would have been a little cowboy kind of guy, then just really lock-minded, and my political views would probably been really different,
No, but you're learning how to work well with others and building up a networking. I mean, these are skills that you can use your whole life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I had the opportunity because I lived in the dormitories. Then all my other friends, some of them lived nearby, and they were day students, we called them, and their parents would invite me to their homes on the weekends. Wow. So I got to experience different families, different cultures. Those days people went to church, so I went to every Christian denomination you can imagine, and it was, for me, it was exciting because I was just watching and learning, and they never said anything bad to me. Like, hey, go on, kill somebody or beat somebody up. It's like, hey, this is not bad. They're nothing bad. And what the interesting thing about the philosophy of our culture, when I went to the military academy, they go, well, we take the kids to church every Sunday, whatever, Presbyterian, Lutheran, Baptist, whatever the church, and they said, well, there's a temple, but it's like an hour and a half away. It's not really a temple. It's our family's home. They go and just, get together and celebrate the culture and talk about stories and pass down the beliefs and things. And they said, well, we'll take them. And they said, well, they go, well, no, but what do you guys teach in church? And they said, we just teach love and God and truth. And they go, take them there.
Yeah, you had a thirst for knowledge. You wanted to learn whatever it was.
Take them there then. That's all we wanted to learn. And so it was really unique because I got a whole different perspective on the Eastern philosophy, Christian philosophy. Nobody ever tried to convert me, which is the interesting part. It's really, there's guys that knock on my door that try to do that, but being right in the middle of it, nobody ever tried to say, be baptized, do whatever, right? I just went and I learned and I brought the knowledge home, and I had the best friends in the world internationally. And so from that perspective, and I'm back in my little town now. I'm back in my little original town, and I'm glad because I'm a leader here now, in respect, and we farm here. My father passed on about a decade ago. My mother's 85, but she's just kicking her. She's the best farmer I know. I mean, she just got over COVID and she beat it like a pup. And she drives. She's out there working, telling workers what to do. She's out there pruning trees. I mean, she's this woman just a diehard. And then I became a city councilman of our local community, and I'm the anti-corruption guy. I'm fighting for the citizens, and because we have a Hispanic community, a Punjabi community, of course the Caucasian community, and we're more of a lower income budget on the spectrum. So I'm helping I'm just trying to give back all the generosity I received in life. I have no choice. I can't hog and hold on to this stuff that was given to me my whole educational life and the things I've experienced. So, and I became a substitute teacher. So I substitute when I can to learn about the kids. That's what I did this morning. Because of COVID, there was a shortage of teachers. So, and my businesses allow me to be flexible. So I can go teach, but yet, because I don't have to clock in per se because I'm self-employed. So it's really been kind of wonderful at this age now. Being able to, I didn't know I'd ever be a teacher, quite frankly. That's the biggest joke I can imagine. But I fell in love with it because it's really, especially after COVID, the children need some leadership and guidance to get out of their cell phones and this tech world. They lost the personal touch. It's amazing, Dan. Oh, yeah. You just walk into a classroom and you see children don't even know how to say hello.
No.
And it's phenomenal. They don't even look up at you. They don't even look up at you. They don't even acknowledge your presence. You have to fight for it.
Yeah, I guess this podcasting thing is probably going to be the last bastion to where they can stay connected and actually talk to somebody and have a conversation for about an hour, because people don't do this face to face anymore. People are looking into their phones, looking at their screens, wandering off. Hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. Talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, impart your knowledge to me. I get it.
That's exactly what I tell them. I tell them, you know, they walk in and they're on their phones, right? Just glued to them. They're texting. And I said, okay, everybody. I said, the school rules are you're not supposed to have your phones out. But I'm a sub, right? And I know you guys are going to push me. But I say, look, I said, here's the deal. You guys have been locked and brainwashed into this world of seclusion. And I said, you know what? I just want to ask you all to please put your best friend away for 15, 20 minutes while we do some work, or your new girlfriend, your new boyfriend, you know. And then the funny thing is you didn't even use FaceTime. You just texted. You didn't even see their face. And you guys built relationships with the screen, you know, and they just go, they look at me. And then I go, hey, how many of you woke up this morning and decided to stick your head in your microwave? You should have, you know, have anybody tried that this morning? And, or would anybody stick their dog in there? And they look at me like, what the heck's he talking about? I go, well, then, well, the reason I'm asking is because you don't mind that you put this microwave up against your head all day long. And you're zapping yourself. So why don't you go get an extra Zolt when they build one that you can stick your head and go zap yourself? I said, this is going to hurt you. These things weren't around when I was your age. Yeah. So 50 years from now, you guys are going to have brain damage or something. They're going to see all the, you know, with all this satellites and all these telephones, and everybody and their uncle has a, you know, some wave going in the air, and now you stick it right up to your head, you know, right? And your eyes, right? You're burning your eyes, right? And so I'm like, sooner or later, you guys are going to go, oh, man, what a bummer. I got dementia at age 40, you know?
All right, Harsev. I think the science is probably out on that. You're like a stand-up comedian. That was pretty good. I'd like you to be my sub. I think one of the lessons one day could be, hey, put your phone away and talk to that person next to you for about 45 minutes, and then write me a little synopsis of what you talked about. Yeah, how about that? You know, something mundane. Yeah.
They're like, what? What are you talking about? I have no clue.
Talk to that guy. I'm going to text him. Yeah, you know, I'm texting that guy. You know, in another part of the country. All right, let's back up and get back to the basics here. You learn how to farm from your grandfather and your dad. And what were you farming there in Live Oaks?
Well, when I grew up, they started planting peaches. And we had prunes were being planted and walnuts. Those were the kind of the orchard crops that started coming to replace the grapes. And so the peaches we grew were the cling peaches, which are the kind that you find in all the cans and fruit cups and things. They're a great fresh eating peach, but they don't hold up in a store. You know, they won't sit on the shelf like the fresh peaches. And but they're delicious, fresh. You eat them and they're picked ripe. So that's the other cool thing. They're ripe and they're canned. So in one respect, a canned piece of fruit is the most nutritious because it's picked ripe right to the last minute and then put in a stable state. And so I grew up with walnuts and peaches and prunes. Then we got in some kiwi. It had a few almonds. The tractors were just starting to develop back then. Machinery was just coming out. I was probably the only 6-year-old that had an actual life-size tractor as his toy. You know, it's this little toy truck.
No, I just heard a story about John Deere. He's most famous for his tractors, but he didn't live long enough to even see the tractor. The thing that he invented was kind of like a sickle that helped you.
Oh, yeah.
That was the thing that he invented.
Yes.
And then you know, it became the tractor company that it is today. But yeah, that was a great story. But all right, I've probably eaten some of the peaches that you farmed. Were you learning how to till the land, plant the seeds? Were you learning from start to finish everything?
Basically, as soon as I could walk, you know, I mean, because my family, I told you, my granduncle, my grandfather, my father, and there was just, you know, school, not even school. So I really cherish my granduncle. he drove around. He had a pickup truck, and he would just take me with him all day. And so when I was tired, I'd just sleep on his lap while he's driving around the old Chevy truck. And then I would watch him. I'd watch him talk and see. He'd learn Spanish because we had Mexican people working with us mostly at the time. And I would listen and learn. I just listen. I just pick it up and hear, try to figure out what they're talking about. And then I'd watch him go and irrigate the fields using shovels. It was a lot of heavy duty work. Hard physical work back then. And so then he bought me my first little shovel, which it was a smaller shovel than the full size. And then he started showing me the posture, the structure, how to do it, because it takes, you just don't go out there and start shoveling dirt. You're going to hurt it won't be successful. And then, and that was a big thing and that shovel meant a lot to me. And then my grandfather, he didn't drive, but he was like the guy that ran around every orchard. He knew every tree. He knew the land. Like, my God, he could tell you to the nth degree what the fall of the land was, and so he would show me how to shovel. Now he would do the deep shovel, because you're doing a lot of mud and water, and you're irrigating these big, like, little lakes and moving into the next one, and sometimes the water breaks out and you have to block it back, make your own dam, and it's a lot of heavy. And in the middle of the night, because you once you start watering, you don't stop, right? And so you're working day and night for those periods. And then he taught me a lot of hardcore stuff about how to really shovel. And then, but from my granduncle, I just watched management, right? I saw his hard work, but I watched his style. And then my grandfather was the hands-on guy, and then I used to follow him around all day long on a tractor, just watch him do stuff, and because you want to make these little furrows and things like that for the irrigation. And I was the most irritating work I had to do. It was the most boring, slow, and because it turned out I was like a daredevil, so I wanted things to go as fast as possible. Once I learned how to get my feet on the pedal, I could reach it. I put the gas on. I was like an Evel Knievel guy, and so as fast as could go, that's what I wanted to do. And then my father taught me also the hard work, but he became also mechanically inclined, working on tractors, and he was a real mathematician. Man, what a brain. He could do it faster than the calculator anytime. And so from him, I learned all the technical aspects of we had applications of pesticides and stuff that, thank God, we don't have to use anymore. I was very involved in getting rid of hardcore pesticides when I was in my teens. In high school and college, I was one of the first former people to get rid of all the DDT level garbage, and brought in biological controls. Took some risks, but used natural biological controls, which are now prevalent.
Well, what years were this when you graduated?
Well, actually, I started out as an ag business major in college, thinking, ag and business. Because I wanted to. My goal was to expand our operation to the next level, right? From growing, we do a little processing, but then I wanted to package and have a label, just kind of that kind of like, the Newman. Paul Newman sauce, that kind of thing, and so, but when I went to the colleges nearby, we have a lot of rice in our area, tons of rice. And that was the major crop before the orchards came out. So most of I took some hardcore ag classes at front. And they were all about row croppers, and we didn't raise row crops. And it was like a lot of chemistry and soils. And I got the fundamentals, which was good. I mean, I learned about soil classes, but I didn't like chemistry in high school, right? I mean, it was the charts of elemental chart. But now you ask me, I'm Mr. Science, right? It's really funny. And then I took horticulture. I learned enough to how to produce plants and raise them and identify them and the concepts of, so things I could pull out. And then I switched mainly to business management after about a year of that. And so, but I was able to apply all those practices live on my family's farm, which was unique because most kids going to college didn't have that opportunity to go home and work on their, bring home what they learned every day. So for me, it was exciting because I could bring home stuff, bookkeeping, the plant material, grafting, I did learn land surveying, surveyed our own properties, things of that nature, which was really, it was good. Right. And then I watched farming. The biggest disappointment of farming for me, watching it in this type of orchard farming, we call premium farming, it's a cyclical, it's a feast or famine situation. And I watched generations, and then we had a big migration of Punjabis to this area, and this is the largest original settlement. So lots of Punjabis came. They were all buying land, all farming, and but it was watching people as feast or famine. I watched my father, right? He educated all his children. Speaking of my sisters, the girls, he actually had my sisters go back to India and get private school educated. So they learned the language barrier, they learned the culture, they learned the music, right, and then came back home, and they weren't like just traditional Indian, but they were definitely cultured. And so that for them, that was their standard. But I got to go to school here, and when I went to high school, it was a whole day. It was a little different.
Okay.
I mean, it was because I was a boy on my own with a bunch of other guys, but my sisters were still living at home, and they went out, they had their freedom, but there wasn't really their lifestyle to be a crazy wild person, like my day. We were just kids. We were having fun.
Well, did you all end up in the family business, or did the sisters go their own way?
Indirectly, yes, but my sisters, my eldest sister was the first Indian wedding in the United States, and it was like 3,000 people attended from all over the country.
I've done a few Indian
Canada,
weddings in Miami. They're wonderful.
And all the dignitaries, the governor of California, and all these people, just everybody you can imagine. And so my brother-in-law, because of this arranged marriage thing, you can choose the what kind of a career path you want for your daughter. So my father wanted to get a doctor for having my sister marry a doctor, and I happened to go to India that trip with them. I was like 10, 12, 13 years old, and my sister wasn't in India. Our family friends there found through a family my brother-in-law, and he was practicing with the military. He was in the military contract or some sorts as a doctor. And so we met him, and we all liked each other's, the family, and I'm just a kid, a teenager, and we had a picture of my sister, right, and showed him a picture of my sister, and then we sent the picture somehow to my sister back in the States, and then they asked me, what do you think? I said, I like him. I think he'll be cool. And my parents were okay. And then my sister just trusted our judgment. And literally my mom, my dad, and I and my two family friends, and we had the engagement party right there without her there. I mean, not the party, but the ceremony. And a few months later, he comes to America. Boom, they're married, and they've been married for God knows ever since.
So that worked out. I mean, I've seen it in movies where there's arranged marriages, and generally they work out. Yeah, they do.
You have to go into it for the right reason. It's about we call it life partners, and we nowadays there's a lot of Western culture, even in India. I mean, with the internet and all the sexy songs and all the whole nine yards, right? The Western world was full of sex and hot. But if you went to India in the old days, they didn't have all that stuff on free TV, and so. Getting divorced or playing around, or it just wasn't in the thought process. It was you get married. I mean, unless you married a beast or something, right? I mean, that can happen. But in general, marriage that's it. I mean, even it was like that here too, right?
Well, but you're culturally yoked, evenly yoked. You have the similar goals. We want to build a family, build a life together, and this is our lease in life. And as long as you have those same goals, really, almost any partner will do. As long as you got the same ideas and the same feelings. But so did all of your sisters get?
Well, and then my next sister in line, I have 2 elder and 4 younger, and my next sister in line, I went to India with my father. I was now a little older, and we went around looking around. And I went out and had lunch or dinner with him, the one that we were. And I came back, told my parents, I think I like this guy. And I'm trying to remember now. It's really weird. Like I feel like I chose my sister's spouses.
It's like really lightning weird. In a bottle, man. Trying to
young of an age. I mean, and so. And I'm trying to remember if my sister ended up coming to India and meeting him, but the decision was pretty much made prior to her, coming, and it wasn't forced. It was, it was trust. It was family trust, and my sisters. So when we grew up, we all had expectations of an arranged marriage, and because see, like I said, we got stuck in the 1960s. And so when I used to go to India in the 70s and 90s to visit, they were so far like ahead of us and doing I go, wow, you guys, this is what happens now. I mean, kids were starting to date a little bit and do things, and they were running around, and I go, wow, we're still stuck in the ancient age over here in California.
Wow.
But now it's different. There's a whole new generation, a whole new population, and they're doing the thing. You got rap, you got songs. The whole culture now it's universal. It's all universal.
Oh, ruined it. Thousands of years of culture ruined.
Yeah. So.
No, but that's a beautiful thing that you're, a matchmaker of sorts. And yes, there is family trust. That's what I glean from that story is there is trust in your family, and there's tightness, and there's closeness, and your father and your grandfather and your uncle teaching you everything that they know, putting all that knowledge into you. And then you still go into horticulture school, becoming even more of an asset to the family business. But
absolutely.
So, going all the way in college to where you can even get a teaching certificate and have that as a fallback. That's fantastic. This is this is telling me lots about you, Harsev, that you're, you not only go for it, you want to excel. You want to be the best at it. You learn a skill. I want to learn that 10,000 hours, learn that skill and become a guru. Then you can in turn teach the next
teacher,
person.
And I'd be taught, and I tell the kids when I teach, because they look at me and they're like, and I said, look, guys, when you walk into my classroom, I don't care who you are, you're a genius as far as I'm concerned, and I'm honored to be amongst you right now. Yeah. And we go into that whole concept of computers and their brain and how smart they are, but if they just got to apply it, and then I asked them a question. I said, how does the smartest guy become the smartest guy in the world? Or girl, how do they become the smartest people? How does anybody become the smartest person in the world? And then they'll look at me like, oh, well, give me some decent answers. I go, it's those willing to ask the dumbest questions in the world, so they get all the answers. So they keep getting answers. So that's how they become the smartest, because they're not afraid to ask the questions, no matter how you dumb or insignificant you think it is. And that's how I was a learner. I asked. What did you mean by that? Because when I was first growing up, it was interesting because in the household, we spoke English and Punjabi, but it was a lot of Punjabi. And then when I went to kindergarten, I had a beautiful kindergarten teacher. She actually, I got to give that woman credit. She did not have any color issue, any cultural. She took me under her wing, and I think she gave me a unique inspiration to feel comfortable as a quote unquote from a I didn't realize it was a foreigner family, right? I mean, that kind of thing at the time, but it was different. And she made me believe in myself somehow, just in that little time frame of kindergarten. And that's where I just said, oh, I can do it all. I can do it. Because there were things like I felt like they were celebrating Thanksgiving, they were celebrating Easter, and they're all these holidays. I'm like, what is that? What's the turkey do? And then those days they do the American Indian thing and cowboys, and I'm like, what is that? And she brought me right under the door, like, oh, no problem. Because I felt a little shy, in those respects. But then she she took that out of me. After that, it was like, sky's the limit, buddy.
Yeah, Harsev, I think there was a book that I can't remember who wrote it. It was Everything I Learned in kindergarten. You learn those skills, how to get along with others.
I wrote my teaching certificate essay on her. That motivation, because and she's still alive. In fact, I've been meaning to go see her for 2 years, and I haven't. She just lives a town away.
Well, now you're going to go. You're going to go within the next month. You're going to be going to see your teacher. Man, I think we got the nuts and bolts of how you are the way you are and how you became the way you became. But I think you stopped planting peaches. When did you start planting other crops?
Well, an odd thing happened a few years ago. They got their brains screwed on straight, and we made up for the massive errors they made in the early 30s when they outlawed cannabis and made it the devil's weed. And they took away hemp way before then, when they discovered oil, because it was a competitor to all the potential plastic garbage we have now. And because hemp, our Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper. And our entire revolution of the United States was funded by hemp rope. Basically, all those ships, all those British ships, they had to have those big giant balls of rope to tie them off. We were mass producing that stuff here and selling it right back to them, and other products. And so, when back in 2018, just shortly after they actually legalized cannabis in California, then hemp became and that was more of a liquor store approach, right? And I was in the cannabis business originally with the teaching, like a medicinal type of approach. And then they legalized it and they made it so complicated. It became abusive. It was just, how do you do this business? I mean, every tax you can imagine, the whole purpose of my spirit of doing business just went away. And then hemp came on the sites, and hemp was going to become an agricultural product, just like peaches. And so when they finally legalized it as an actual agricultural crop. And so everybody and their uncle in this area decided, boy, we got to do this, because the estimated demand was great. The potential, the numbers were just dialing on the pages. Everybody and their uncle from New York, there were investors running around, and because it takes a lot of money to grow hemp, or cannabis for that matter. The initial startup, and then it's just a high maintenance crop. And so we started looking at the numbers, did everything, tried to get some in the ground, did some things, and all of a sudden within a year, everybody and their uncle that decided to plant hemp, they just planted hemp. And then a lot of people got ripped off by faulty seed companies from all over the place, just trying to, the corrupt people. And so we had this massive dump in the market of crop failure. We had the price too much that was just overgrown, and the cost of hemp just dropped to the floor. I mean, it was just so much hemp got wasted because it just didn't get sold or produced, because the hemp had to go to extractors, labs, to pull the oils out. And we were expecting the industry to grow. We needed those facilities nearby, manufacturing, extraction labs. And we had all those people wanting to come here because we're a prime growing area. But when it failed, everything stopped. And all the money, all the people that were surrounding us dumped out. And so it actually hurt us pretty bad. And my goal was to start growing it, start processing, start building a product line, and then go online, right? E-commerce. That was more or less, that's the kind of the future as I see business. And so, but unfortunately, the grow part just hit the rock bottom miserably for most of the growers, at least around here. And so then I had to figure out, what am I going to do? Now what? It's not worth growing it. It's too much. You're going to lose your shirt, and then get someone to extract it. They're not doing. It's costly. And then the extractor labs were filled up with excess inventory sitting there too. And so they were giving it away. So there was a no-win situation. So then I decided, okay, I should have started with e-commerce first.
Well, Harsev, before you go any further, I'm not afraid to ask the stupid questions. What's the difference between hemp and cannabis? Is it the same thing?
The fundamental difference is they're basically first cousins, or brother and sister. Okay, so hemp in India, hemp or cannabis, whatever you want to call it, the word weed, it's a weed. So in California, we have something called Johnson grass. I don't know if it's all, throughout the United States, but the weeds we have here, it's called Johnson grass. And it grows everywhere. I mean, that's the pain in the butt, right? So, but if you go to India, the pain in the butt weed is weed. It grows everywhere. And people have to, they're chopping it down like, God darn it, my crop's getting ruined, So it's like but our weeds here are useless. There's no economic value unless they start making fiber out of it or something of that nature, which we're looking into doing now because of some technologies. But nobody really. You could go out and mow a bunch of mountain fields with grass growing in it, I guess. But so the original plant was hemp cannabis. It was just wild, and it wasn't until people started in certain international countries started propagating it and breeding it, but really it was the United States market that really took over and started breeding basically hemp cannabis plants from seeds from all over the world. And and by breeding them, they started increasing the THC levels. So everything up to THC in both plants, as far as the fundamental hemp plant, is literally an identical plant. They all have cannabinoids. They all have terpenes, which are the aroma, the same cannabinoids, the same molecular compounds. And so for the cannabis industry, they graft in the seeds and they do all this pollinating, and they basically create a plant with great percentages of THC, right? The psychoactive factor and tetrahydrocannabinol. And then for hemp, they do the opposite. So they breed it so that the CBD, which is the big buzzword in the market for the legal world, they breed it for high percentage of CBD, and they breed out as much as possible the THC. And that's just simple, basic propagating horticulture practices 101. That's how they make tomato seeds and all these different varieties of any vegetable, or when you go down to buy plants, it's the same concept. So the hemp is now legal. It meets a legal threshold of less than 0.3% THC. That's what makes it hemp. And so you're allowed to grow it, and any farming commodity, process it. They still have some restrictions on how, if they put it in food or not. It's a weird law. It's an agriculture farming product, but yet there's some interesting prohibitive natures to it. And so, but cannabis now, of course, you can't just grow it openly. That's still a controlled substance in that regard, but you can grow it legally at home in so many plants. And then in California, you can grow the heck out if you have the right permits and so forth, and commercially get it to a dispensary. And, it's like, it's normal now.
Let's stop. Harsev, what can you do, and what do you do with your hemp? What products do you make?
So what we do is I'm associated with, because of the time I've been involved, I've been associated with many great formulators, growers, master growers, herbologists, nutrition people that have been doing it out of the nature of their heart, right? That's their thing. They're just naturally good at it. And we have a particular one brand, a very good dear friend of mine who I met about 7-8 years ago, and that there's a brand that we carry of her brand called Dutch Farm. She's originally from the Netherlands, and she's a retired surgical nurse, and she migrated to the U.S. and she couldn't get her a job here of some sort, so whatever the issue was back then in her field, but she went to work in the health arena, and she got a job with like a social worker. And she did a lot of stuff. She worked very hard. Her whole life to get to even that. She struggled, but she made it to a place. And so she actually ended up where she was caring for an entire northern region of hospice, quadriplegics, sick people, all just people that needed that hand, right? That just really on the bottom of the barrel from health. And we happen to be in cannabis country to begin with. We're surrounded by the mountains, so all the black market, there's cannabis up here like crazy, right? It's just we're in the zone. And so she bought a place up in the mountains there and started growing these specialty varieties, and she started extracting the oils in a very traditional, old-fashioned way. And she grew it. And she had specialty seeds. She went back to the Netherlands. The something Queen Seed Company of the Netherlands gave her these special seeds from them, and so then she'd have all these different varieties of strains in bottles. Not just like if you go to the store today, if you just buy CBD, it's just oil with something, or there's no strains. It's just the pure oil, and then they add stuff to it to say help you sleep and do this. But what she did was she took different strains, and there's two families in hemp and cannabis. One we call it indica, and then there's other one is sativa. So indica is more loaded with the relaxing factors of the cannabinoids, and sativa has a little less of the relaxing factor and a little more of the active factors. That's the traditional sense. Now, if you're ADD or something of that nature, it works the opposite sometimes. But for the most part, so most of the cannabis that we got back in the day from Colombia, Mexico, was super loaded with cannabinoids like CBD. And in those days, people would get couch lock, as we called it, where they'd get high and just be all hungry and just really laid back. But now that they've breeded these things so well, they have breeded that couch lock version of it kind of out. And so now you have these really well balanced molecular compound structures. And so you can get most stuff today is a hybrid. All the original, the original, it's really hard to find it unless you know the guy who has his private stock, who did it 35 years ago, right? So for the most part, everything's in the middle of the road, but people will still call it, it's this dominant, or it's sativa dominant, but it's a hybrid, or it's an indica dominant, but it's a hybrid. And so, but anyhow, so she was one of the oldest extractors of oils, I think, in the marketplace in the United States. And she started having great results. I mean, great results. Patients, quadriplegics, their hands opening, their appetite increasing, their eyes lighting up, people especially dying of cancer. And in those days, people were dying of AIDS before they knew it. Right? They were really suffering. And so she was helping people get through the suffering with cannabis-based tinctures. But if you test the way she extracted, if you tested it in a lab, it would show 0 THC. And just the way she extracted it, it's unique. Although and she did the whole plant. And so the oils you get in the marketplace, they'll take the whole oil. And if it's hemp, there's going to be some THC. But if it's legal limits, you get to process it. So when they take it to these extraction plants, it's like they distill it, or there's different ways to do it. And so they'll separate. They'll take the lipids or the fats, because when you take the oil out, it's very rich, thick, like honey, really super thick, like crude. They call it crude oil, literally. Okay. And it's golden, crude, dark green, because it's the chlorophyll's in there. Everything's concentrated now. And so then they separate the chlorophyll, they separate the lipids, and then if they want, they can take the THC completely out. So that's what they call THC-free products, or they can leave it in legal limits, and they call that full spectrum. So then now you have a beautiful golden honey, but then they have to mix that with either a microfractionalized coconut oil, which is just it's good for you. It's MCT, they call it, but it's actually good for your body. And they'll blend it with that to make it liquidy. So you can pour it and do things with it. And then the other traditional, which my friend Judith from Dutch Farms, she uses a very high grade vegetable glycerin, which is a step above that. And it's also good for your body, and there's no hypoglycemic effect. So it's sweet, but if you're diabetic, it's not sugar. It doesn't convert. And the other oil, MCT, the coconut oil, diabetics have to be careful. They don't see that's where people don't. That's where the education process comes in. That's what we do different. We're actually clinical based. So we are actually medicinal consultants, healers. We're not trying to sell a bunch of oil on the market. We want people to heal. So we explain to people and we ask those questions. If you're diabetic, you don't want to take this product, you want to take this product. And a lot of that we learned on the frill. People telling us, "Oh my God, I bought this other product. My sugar went up to the sky, and then it wasn't that with your tinctures, and then I switched back to yours, and my sugar's normal." So these things we learned over she was been in business. I think this is her 12th year, and I think the only older person that was making oil prior to this that made this whole CBD thing really significant was a guy named Rick Simpson, and he was based out of that Colorado region area, and they called it RSO, Rick Simpson oil. So he basically extracted cannabis oil, and then which was loaded with everything, cannabis and the whole 9 yards, right? And so and he was giving it to people medicinally, and it was working. I mean, it does work. I mean, whether it's cannabis or hemp, a lot of our physicians who use our products, they feel that the THC has to be in the product to be the actual greatest medicinal value. We believe that too. You have to, because it's part of the natural plant. So if you take something out of it, you've sort of changed its molecular capability a bit. And so, and there's a lot of science being developed about that now, and there's research and studies, and it's been going on for years. But that's our personal experience of thousands of customers over the time, right?
No,
And
I was just thinking that science is amazing. Now, all these people that you mentioned, they're all working with you at the HempGuru LLC.
Yeah. Now, well, Rick is probably very retired now because he was an adult when I was a kid, right? But he's the guy that I can't think of the baby's name. I'm not going to say Jessica. It's not Jessica. That's, I think, another Jessica thing. But there was a baby something. It's on the internet. It's on YouTube. There are babies born that suffer from seizure dysfunction. And, I mean, newborn babies having 300 to 500 seizures a day. And let me tell you, a seizure is mind-blowing.
Literally, because it's in your mind.
They break your brain, they break your body, the stress, it kills you. You have to have like a shot of pain medication if you have a full body seizure. And you can imagine an infant going through 300 seizures a day or 500, and the parents having the kid's not going to make it. They're going to break. They're going to break. By age 3, 4, 5, they're going to die. So Rick, his theory, and also we have a lot of ancient history on this plant. This has been around forever, right? From the day one, right? I mean,
it was growing like weeds in Punjab.
Yeah, and it grows like weed, and we'll talk. There's biblical notes. When I was trying to fight for legalization, I said, "Is there anything in the Bible? Anything I can find?" And because in this world, the Bible rules in the Western world, right? Then they don't. The Eastern culture, right. You Indians or Chinese, like, hey, we do this stuff. We've known it for a long time.
I say Solomon tried everything. Solomon tried everything. He went around the world. He did everything.
But the thing is, he was able to get to this baby and give her drops of this oil, and the seizures literally started decreasing down to like nominal. And this child now is an adult. And now when it was illegal in states, parents would relocate to Colorado to get their babies healed. I mean, this is how terrible medicine that works. But no, it has to be a pharmaceutical that doesn't work. And so it was against the law. I mean, God, if you brought a little oil back to give to your baby and you got caught by the cops by it, you'd go to jail. I mean, for a little bit, and so Rick started the concept of the medicinal, and then that's sort of somebody kind of got the CBD thing. I don't know exactly who really.
Let me get a timeline on that, because when did that happen? Because that was before 2018 when you got hard into it.
Because like my friend Judith, right? Yeah. So she was doing it 12, 13 years ago, but she did it from the holistic perspective of the whole plant. We know there were cannabinoids. We know there was cannabidiol, cannabidiol, cannabinol, and there's 100 plus of them out there, and THC is cannabinoid. And so she knew what she was doing, because she grew up and she was an herbalist and naturalist from childhood. Yeah. So that's why she did what she did, and her product works better than any product that I can find, because people keep going, there's nothing on the bottle that says this much CBD and this much this. It just says the Berry Beautiful brand, or Euphoria. It's a plant. It's the actual name of the plant, Euphoria, or it's that plant, or it's ACDC, and you go try which one and see which one works with your chemistry. And so versus most of the other oils, when you go down and go to this shop, you're just getting the pure oil that it can come from a million plants, and hopefully you have to make sure you work with a facility that deals with tested, certified, organic, high standards, and that's the person you work with. And it took me a while. We had to source those people out too. And so, as I said, we don't have extractors in California, and that's the unfortunate part. And we're not really growing that much of it in this area right now because of the economic change. And so a lot of people are just relying on these other areas, which are massively growing it like rice. And they're growing it just like weeds, and they're harvesting it that way. But in California, we're a cannabis state, so they like to boutique it. So everyone's got these really, cool plants, and they got to have the big flowers. And of course, it's all beneficial because it's more potent, and so you're getting higher percentages of all the value of the plant. But it's just a different attitude towards it. We don't treat it like corn. And so, although there are groups here now that they're actually going to be, they've created successfully hemp grain. So we might be replacing rice, the starchy stuff, that turns to sugar. And we have another business associate that we can take all the waste material. Like you don't know what to do with all the stems and all the trunks, because hemp is so hard. It's very hard to mulch it down or burn it. It just takes forever, and you can't burn much anymore. So there's another gentleman who has the technology.
Can't you build something with hemp?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's technology that exists right now, and that you can actually, we call it plastic mold injection, is how they make all these styrofoam cups and all these McDonald's, to go clamshells and the forks and the straws, and I mean all that throwaway one-time use restaurant industry stuff. Okay, so we can make any of that now with all the waste material of the hemp, all the stalks. We have this thing called an extruder. So instead of putting plastic pellets in the whole line, we now we replace 2 parts, and now we can take the hemp plants or any kind of any vegetable waste, and convert it into starch. We do something to it, and it converts to starch, and we run it right through the same machine, and voila, we have stronger, better, biodegradable plastic. And you can make car parts, you can make tennis rackets, golf clubs, you can because you can make it as strong or as weak as you want. You can make it biodegrade if it's a cup, like a one-time cup from McDonald's. Well, first of all, it's a Happy Meal. I don't recommend McDonald's, but if it's a Happy Meal, it's the best dumb example I can think of.
Yeah, you'll be drinking out of that glass and getting a really Happy Meal.
You got this whole hemp bag, hemp cup, hemp container. Everything's hemp. And you eat your hamburger, eat your little, you have your toy. It's made out of hemp also, plastic. And then if you're still hungry and you go, Mommy, I want a little dessert. Well, we can flavor the cup strawberry, and you can just eat the cup.
It's a really Happy Meal.
You can eat the bag and the toy and the cup, everything. You just eat it.
Science is amazing. Now you talked a little bit,
chocolate flavored one, and strawberry flavored one. But if you do throw it out the window, it will decompose into dirt. Yes. And so, like, they can put a life on tennis rackets, because everybody throws a racket after 5 years. Well, you can make it decompose. They can throw it in their yard, and it'll decompose. Probably even the plastic strings, everything. And this is the technology. We have it in our hand. It's been around for 20, 30 years. There's too much competition with the plastic folks.
Harsev, you've talked a little bit about THC, and my limited amount of knowledge on this on cannabis. I mean, my mom's a child of the 60s. She's been on the podcast. She said, I learned way too many things about what my mom did before I was born, and maybe even when I was young, and that's been on this podcast. But I never had the urge or the desire to smoke weed or but I like the smell of it. I like, when, had the smell, the contact high. And I think when I'm an old man, I'll probably be one of those old guys sitting on the porch, having a smoke and maybe using some CBD for certain, ailments, joints, and what have you. Now, from what I've heard, some of the old timers, THC, it's getting higher and higher and higher. They can't get that indigo buzz anymore. It's all sativa. It's all real high with a lot of THC. Is that what's going on?
Well, here's our perspective. Fortunately, it's impossible to OD on cannabis. It's just physiologically impossible. It can't happen. And so versus alcohol, heroin, you'll put yourself to sleep and you'll stop breathing and you'll die. That's basically an OD. You've overdone it, and it affects in the brain the motor functions, and it makes you stop breathing. That's what an OD is. You just stop breathing. And with cannabis, it doesn't affect that breathing mechanism. So you'll fall asleep and eat maybe 2 pies before you go to bed, but that's about it. But what in my experience and most of my friends, people are rebelling on the higher the THC percentage. So 12% was, kind of really good for a while. And then it went up to 18, then it went to 20, 25. Some people claim 30, 35. I don't, when you start hitting those numbers, 30, 35, it's very rare. It's not common, because that's somebody that really worked at it. They really worked at it, and they're not going to be able to give that plant in abundance to everybody to grow. And so, but the thing is, there's a sacrifice to it too. And because you're like vitamin C, right? you could take the average person should probably take about 2,000 milligrams for normal intake, maybe 8 or 10,000 a day if you're sick or fighting, if you're worried about COVID or something like that. But for the most part, a couple thousand milligrams of vitamin C in a day are about your body's physical ability to process it. And then otherwise you have yellow pee in the snow, right? I mean, your body will just dump it, right? So it's going to use what it can. And THC and cannabis and cannabinoids work the same way. Your body will, so you could take a hit of 10% THC and get if it's good quality, and you're going to get maybe 2 to 3 hits of that, and then maybe you take a 25%er, and you can take 4 tokes of that 25%er, but you're not going to get more and more and more and more stoned. It'll be like you'll tap out. And so you'll be high or feeling what level you want to be at, and you still get the kick. I mean, that first 5-minute kick, like I've been around the business since I was a teenager. So it's not even like people say you build up a tolerance for it. It's not really a tolerance. You just understand how it works, and so so even at the higher the percentage, even if you took a big old toke, you can only process so many milligrams. Your body will only and it's your nature. It's yours and mine are different, right? Yeah. And some people do think they go, wow, I'm just so high. They feel dizzy, or sometimes the sativa will get their heart racing, and they shouldn't smoke sativa, right? Or they shouldn't take it. So it's not that it's detrimental, but some people will have that kind of an experience where they get really nervous, and that's that sativa. But it in all reality, it's like, like wine or anything else. If you're going to do this, if you're going to do it, educate yourself a little bit, go to a good person, a good bud tender place, or, some place that's going to spend a little time with you, or a company like mine, the way we explain things to people, and give you kind of like a little menu of selection. Hey, if it's a weekend, and you're out there fishing, and you want a little relaxation, okay, well then right? Use these types. Now, if you're going to work, or you're staying busy but your back hurts, and you're under stress, well then you need this stuff here that'll help you keep you busy, and you'll get, because sometimes what happens if you make a mistake at 10 o'clock and choose the wrong, if you smoke a sativa, you'll end up cleaning your whole garage for 3 hours and not realize it.
Okay. All right.
It's really funny because it's not like it used to be where people go, I'm just so stoned, I'm just zoned out. It doesn't work that way. You got to choose your medicine at the right moment.
Well, your website, HempGuru LLC.com, is jam-packed full of information about who you are. Do you actually have a store, or what can people get from you?
No, we're strictly e-commerce. We feel it's if we were to do a store type of thing, we might do like a personal delivery type of approach, just because of what's going on with all this. Oh yeah. Just everything, just so much going on right now. It's and a storefront, and it also limits us.
Absolutely.
So we'll do one-on-one. I'll do sessions online. Like doctors are doing telemed, right? We'll do tele CBD. So to
for
speak.
Sure. I don't blame you for not having a hanging out a shingle, for sure. Because everything is going online. You're going to be getting everything delivered to your door.
It's a good medium. Although from our other side of our, we got the hemp and all that goodness. We also have some very, very serious clinical side of another company that we have. That's basically they're joined by the hip, but the other company is more very designed for the clinical market. Although it's an over-the-counter natural solution, but it's very cardiovascular oriented.
Tell me more.
And so it complements. Without that, what we're doing is we have there's the newest information, which is about 20 years old now, is they discovered that a cell in your arteries it's a molecule called nitric oxide, and nitric oxide is fundamentally the most important molecule in your body to make sure that all the blood circulation is flowing, it's circulating, and it has to be there because it's what we call a signaling cell. So your body has all sorts of cells, and CBD is a signaling cell. So there's receptors in the body for CBD. Okay, you have 2 receptors in the body, and they discovered something called the EndoCannabinoid system in the 90s. They didn't know we had one. We all called it immune system, but now we know we have an actual endocannabinoid system. It produces 2 cannabinoids. So one's anandamide, and the other one's, we know it's 2-AG, and your body produces those. And then every single cell in your body, millions of cells, they have these little receptors attached to them. And the cannabinoids are designed to go in there to create homeostasis, balance. So all disease is when something goes out of balance. You get injured, you're overdoing drinking, you're overdoing drugs, you're overdoing medications, whatever, genetics, whatever, you live in a polluted area, your respiratory is bad. So disease or sickness is when one area, one organ starts to dysfunction. And now, so if you can imagine, do you remember maybe as a kid, the children have those mobiles in their bedrooms, stars hanging, and they kind of, there's like about 10 or 20 stars, and they're all balanced, and they kind of, with a little bit of breeze, or like a wind chime, right, with all the tubes hanging, or the glass pieces, and if they're balanced, they work. But as soon as you tip it one way, or if the whole thing gets messed up, right? So a wind chime is designed so if it blows in the wind, it's balanced, you get this harmonic, beautiful tone, which is also part of healing, right? Tones are healing. And so the mobile, which is one of the best explanations I've understood, is when something goes bad, your body goes, hey, he's not feeling well, sends a bunch of CBD to that spot, and it goes right into the nucleus of the cell. We're talking at the cellular level.
And we're producing some of that ourselves.
Yes, we can. But as we age, aging is basically you start producing less of those key factors. For example, we produce nitric oxide up until about age 40. Basically, when you start turning 40, that's when these things start. Your body produces less, right? And then in the Western world, we grew up with McDonald's, Burger King, 7-Eleven. Everything's fast food. Everything's packaged. Everything's got preservatives. Everything's, just terrible. Pepsi Cola, all this, everything, sugar, salt, all those super duper snacks and crackers, and, the zesty ones are full of sodium. And then we don't get enough exercise. And then we drink a lot of beer and, margaritas and cigarettes. And then there's pollution. And then there's just the stresses of life. And then there's emotional stress, physical stress, happy stress, sad stress. All of these impact you can imagine your body is running around. It's like if you had to put alarms in your body and put microphones on them, you would think it was World War III outside your body. Because your body is under constant attack. Anything that goes in your body has got somebody bad in it. And so your body is constantly battling to keep you alive, just constantly. And you don't know what you're breathing in the air. The carpet in your house, the chairs, they're all sloughing off petroleum, right? They're sloughing off plastic. Anything that's made of plastic, it's evaporating. That's why you have to get a new one that wears out. Or the tires on the road. Where does all that carbon go when the tires wear out? Yeah. It doesn't just disappear. Nope. It's in the air. Right? And you're driving in traffic with your windows down. Guess what you're breathing? And the worst thing we did was all these masks during COVID. You're breathing in carbon dioxide, putting it right down the oxygen tube, which is the worst thing you could do. Right? So that wasn't the best solution at the end. That's not a good long-term solution at all, because you're hurting yourself. You're poisoning yourself with these stupid masks that they have out there. And so, not stupid, but the way they function.
No, I think that there's some science to that. There definitely is some study to that.
Yeah. Long term, if they did that forever, the kids would, there'd be brain stuff. And so there's all these different things attacking us. And so the cannabinoid. So as you get older, we've always known, people have used cannabinoids forever. So because they knew that plant had medicinal, topical, and digestional based benefit. Wow. And so what happens is, if you were lucky, you started supplementing when you were a child. It's because it's like a fountain of youth. If people are looking for the fountain of youth, I've coined what we do is we create the fountain of health. And so that's my take on it. So we try to partner and bring in people that are like-minded who have already done the homework, right? So I don't have to invent every product or, start from scratch.
Yeah.
So they have their science team. We all get along. We're thinking the same, and we're spiritually connected. And we do everything with a great spirit in mind of healing, with love, prayer, not to necessarily any God per se, but spiritually speaking of goodness, right? And so, and when we talk to people, we talk with compassion, and we want them to heal. And if they don't, well, my friend Judith has never had a single, nor I, with her Dutch Farms products, not one person has ever turned a product back. Never. In 12 years.
That's a good track record right there. It sounds like you have a very open.
Said, didn't work for me. I hate your stuff. Nothing. In fact, they go to other products which are advertised on TV, or they spend all this marketing dollar. Oh, I need that, and it's all half garbage or just not really what they thought it was. And they go back to our product and they go, "Wow, I feel much better." And it's because it's more holistic.
Yeah.
And it's the whole plant. And then now we're not against the oils. So when you have this, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about CBD. CBD by itself, in the beginning, people thought CBD. So they would extract the CBD, they distill it out, and they just put CBD into a bottle. And pure CBD without everything else, it's like eating just the icing and no cake, or a cake and no icing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. That's a good analogy.
Right? So yeah, it tastes sweet, but it didn't do the whole thing, right? Yeah. So CBD by itself is not a good solution in our experience. Okay, and clinically now, everybody now, so when they extract the fats and the chlorophyll and to make the oil for the general oil business, then they're leaving in all the key elements, right? So I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No problem.
But anyhow, when they take those things out and they take out the THC or leave it in, now we call that a full spectrum. So when they've taken something out, then they use the term full spectrum versus whole plant. Now, I think our company is one of the only companies who actually says we do whole plant tinctures and products. I just started doing that because I realized that's what we do.
Yeah.
and because it's really hard for us to say we sell CBD, because it's really not the truth for what we do. We sell a plant, the oil. We call it hemp oil products. Sure. That's what we call it. That's really our, but it's going to take us time, because everybody in the world goes, "You got CBD?" And then when they do make CBD products, these guys are just trying to make a fast buck. They'll put on the bottle 1,000 milligrams on the bottle. They'll put 5,000 milligrams on the bottle. They'll put 10,000 milligrams, and people go, "Oh my God, I gotta have the most CBD. That's the best product." And there's no value. There's no value. But they're buying a product that's really not. You don't even know where it came from. You don't know whose it is. It's just like a product in the store shelf, right? You say, "Oh, I'll try this energy drink." How many energy drinks are there, right? You don't know which one's what they put in it. So with us, in like Dutch Farms tinctures, we can't even measure it. We don't even tell them how much CBD is in there. But I say, "You got to try it." But I said, "Listen, but I do have a product that has a plant that has higher CBD, and because they extracted it the way they did, we can measure that. We can tell you that there's 30 milligrams per dose." And so most human beings, we recommend between 30 to 90 milligrams in a day, depending on, on your condition. And most people that are using CBD or traditionally right now are people 40 and plus, because most of us are broken in one way or another because of the American lifestyle. And they think they're buying CBD, and it's just because it was marketed wrong. And so what they really want is the whole plant, and they want the benefit. And then I have them supplement with some other, because there's not, like I said, I can't buy a bunch of whole CBD whole hemp plant products, so I have to use these other products. So, and also one of my associates, we've also now taken it even the next step. So most stuff, if it's internal, it has to go through your digestion. So the tinctures, you put them they're sublingual. So you put them under your tongue and you swish it around for a little bit, and you can feel the little rush in your head immediately. Mm-hmm. And then you swallow it down. But if it's edible or something you eat, it's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to go through your digestive process, break down to its molecular finite molecules, and then get spread throughout your bloodstream and start acting on the bad guys in your body. So now there's associates we met about a year ago who have taken nanotechnology and made nano the delivery system. So now it's super fine. It's attached to a super fine nano. Nano means like, invisible, basically, right?
Small.
Nano size.
Totally small, yeah.
So now you take the oil, and they had to formulate this, very well done, but really top-notch formulators. And they formulated the hemp oil, that full spectrum, without the fat, without the chlorophyll, and they blended it with this nano solution. And it's also now water soluble, because hemp oil is not water soluble traditionally. So this is water soluble. So now you can take this one product we have called Waves, and they flavored it like with coconut lime or dragon fruit or lemonade, and you shake the bottle, and it's a super duper highly concentrated CBD. It's 10 milligrams a shot, and you squirt it in your water, and you have a spritzer, or you put it in your favorite cocktail, or you put in your favorite juice drink. It doesn't matter. Whatever flavor it is, you put a squirt, and boom, you have an instant CBD drink. And if you want a double shot, you make a double shot. So these, so these are different ways. So people, and these days people carry around those water jugs like religiously, all day long. So I tell people, stick a couple squirts in there. If you have these backaches and just, you get tired, and just drink that as you need it all day, and get your dosage, and you'll feel better. You'll feel your day will go by better. And then we have so we have the original tinctures. I say you got to do that as a baseline. And then if you want to beef it up, there's also what we call soft gels, which are the same product, but not. We also have nano in that. We have nano gel caps, but we also have traditional gel caps. And so it just depends. People, everybody's a little different. So the nano might work really well for someone, maybe not as effective as the other. So we have people supplement if they're trying to treat something chronic or some bad feeling, or they have cancer. Now, if you have cancer, we tell people keep stepping it up until you're feeling better. You have your appetite, so you could be taking maybe 200 milligrams, or it's hard. It's that person's chemistry. So in I like I said, I grew up on tractors, and I was the Evel Knievel. I mean, if you could get bounced around, practically break your back, get thrown off a piece of equipment, motorcycle accidents, cars, you name it, whatever. If it had, I was driving as rough as roads and jumping. I was, I've had so crashes, burns, and only one broken bone, amazingly. But so needless to say, as I got hitting my late 50s, man, oh my God, just everything started hurting. And so, but you can't just do it with this alone. So, you have to do exercise. Sure. You have to understand. We also do body mechanics. I have another associate beyond just the hemp stuff. We also bring in the physical side of it to teach you how to manipulate your bones and your muscle, your structure, your posture. So we're getting the entire body tuned up with the right source inside. So we're giving you the molecular compounds. You have to tell your body how to work and get it back to posture, so you're not sloughing, your neck stops hurting, your back stops hurting, your knee stops hurting, and these are simple exercises of just getting you back grounded to earth. And once you're grounded into earth properly, and you have the right tools you're putting in your body, like our nitric oxide supplement, it's actually it's the same thing as like beetroots and potassium nitrates, same as spinach. You can eat a plate full of spinach or bok choy. 5 or 7 ounces of spinach will give you a full dose of nitric oxide. It's called dietary nitrates, and you chew it, hit your saliva, it turns into nitrite. It goes to your stomach, it turns into nitric oxide, and that flows through every cell in your body. And if you have that in your body, you are healing. And you combine that, and that's what makes, then you take the CBD stuff, it just empowers it, right? So it's a match made in the great glory of somewhere. But
Harsev, man, you're so full of knowledge. I can tell that we could go forever and ever. But I like to be mindful of people's time. Now if people need a consultation, they can go to HempGuru LLC.com, and you will consult with them, and you will get them on a treatment that will be structured just for them.
Absolutely. We literally can prevent them from having a heart attack, stroke. We'll get their entire cardiovascular system in check. We'll get their inflammation, and then with their immune system, with all the cannabinoids. It's just a knockout combination. And we're also, that's not where it ends, right? We have other things coming in the pipeline, and so there's also nutrients you have to put in your body to get carried. And that's the thing. So we're looking for the other nutrients too that we feel are comfortable and complementary. So you come to us, it's not just for hemp or cannabis. It's about, I want to feel better, and I want to make sure and we don't overcharge people. It's all about helping get it out there and a fair return. And if someone says, I don't have this much money, we make it happen,
Well, you've already said it. Your community is very open source. You get along. There's a big community that you've been working with, all these scientists, yep. I have to call them, that have been doing this since the 80s. You had one that said she was helping out with AIDS way back when, and that that in itself says that she's been doing this quite a long time, and you've been doing it a long time as well.
She's good at it. Yeah. She's good at it. And the people, we're being surrounded, my business partner, he's my real science background guy. I mean, that's where his background is. Yeah. And he's the one that's connected us with world-class, our nitric oxide products, and that side of our business is tied to Nobel Prize laureates from the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, we're taking the Nobel Prize. They discovered the nitric oxide cell in the 1990s as what they call a signaling cell, the commander in chief. So without it, you can put all this stuff in your body, and they go, I don't know what to do. And that nitric oxide cell is so critical to men and women. And what happened without it? Cardiovascular disease. Your immune system goes debunked out, and then your cannabinoid system is down. I mean, everything, and you start breaking down, and you unfortunately you grow old prematurely.
Yeah, I don't want this to be the last time that we talk, Harsev. As things progress, as newer information comes through, I give you an open invitation to come back here and chit chat with me and impart that knowledge, that good knowledge, that's so important knowledge that's helping save lives, really, and not just save lives, but also making the quality of life better.
Absolutely. At this point, it's about improving people's quality of life, because I can't tell you how, especially seniors. Walk in with 10 prescription bottles, broken, needing help, their own budgets, right? Social Security is not helping. And then now we have inflation, all this stuff going on. Oh, yeah. It's hard. It's very emotional. When you want to, you got solutions for them. It's hard to stop. It really is.
Well, Harsev, let's wind this edition down. Give some shout outs to people that you need to give to, that people that have helped you along the way. You've already shouted out quite a few people, and then we'll give some last words for the people. I wanted to really
say thank you to my dear friends at Cost Marketing, Katrina there, the chief in charge there, Cost Marketing. They've been instrumental. What a team. I've been operating on a sly budget, but I have a full department, a tech department, a graphic department, and really the cost that it's cost me is nominal, in terms of what I'm receiving. Johnny on the spot. Let's put it this way. I think she's my boss. She's on top of me so much about, like Johnny on the spot. Did you do this? Did you do that? And we have meetings like clockwork, and she's so organized, and I've learned so many skills about social media. She's forced me to get in there, dig in, understand it, because I have to, right? But I took her on because I was so overwhelmed. But they do a fantastic job. I said, here, handle this for me. I gave them some information I could do, but the work they're doing for me, the exposure on Facebook, Instagram, it's really beautiful. It's just beautiful stuff. And it represents what we're trying to do, right? It shows quality, it shows knowledge. And I'll tell you, I look forward to my calls with them, and everybody communicates with you. Right, they're all emailing you and all this, and they know exactly what's going on as soon as it's done, and they get your approval, and very professional. I mean, I would recommend these folks without any hesitation at all.
Oh, I've built up an appreciation for Katrina Texador and her team at the Cos Marketing Agency. I met her at a Comic-Con. She was I think she was Wonder Woman.
She's a crazy woman too. She's out there and does her Batwoman, and
yeah, and it's built out since then.
She's a wild woman.
Yeah, she's built this into a career and helping people. And this is one of the reasons that I started this podcast too, is to help people, talk with people just like you, and help to spread the word about what you do. And Harsev,
I appreciate you, Dan.
I'm so happy to be talking to you.
I want to give you a shout out too. I got a chance to view some of your previous programs, and I appreciate some of the topics and concerns you have, and thank you for having me. I'm humbled and most honored.
Thank you,
to be
Harsef.
one of your
It's
guests.
all on this side. All right. I usually like to finish these things off with last words for the people. This could be words to live by. Maybe somebody told you something a long time ago, or a mantra that you wake up every morning. Since you're a guru, you probably wake up with a mantra, or just whatever pops into your head at this moment in time. Harsev, J.R. Thiara, the Hemp Guru LLC. Give the last words for the people.
Enjoy life to the fullest, ladies and gentlemen, and take charge of your own. All my love from all of us.
Oh, my goodness. There you have it, party people. I could have talked to him for hours and hours and hours. That man's got so much knowledge up in his head, so much knowledge to impart to the people. I encourage you to go to HempGuruLLC.com and get some of that knowledge. If you're hurting, if you got a little pain, CBD might be the way to go. Cannabis, any of the cannabis products that he has available on that website, and so much more. Oh my goodness, he's got some immune N99 Immune Support LLC is something that he's working on, and that's going hand in hand with the HempGuruLLC.com. So I encourage you to find out more. Thank you so much, Harsev, J.R., Thiara. I encourage you to drop the JR. Harsev is just easy enough for most people to say. Hi, I'm Harsev. Harsev. Easy to say. Come on. Even Thiara. Yeah. All right. But if JR is the way people know you, that's fine too. What's in a name, right? Hey, thank you. Really, really, the pleasure was all mine having you here on the What Makes You Famous podcast. All right, that's it for this edition of What Makes You Famous. If you, yes, you, my loyal listener, if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call, 501-470-6386, or email keysdan@aol.com. That's it for me. It's keysdan, radiowhat.com, djlittlerock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.